Things have been ramping up for the party recently. First, they got sent back in time by Doris Toothaker. Then, some of them died. Then more of them joined. Next, they got told to go get revenge on Doris Toothaker, and ended up in a time loop. Poor Nadar, the Dragonborn, had to drink a potion of dragon blood every morning in the time loop to ensure he grew back his wings. Then, after realizing they were a day late to everything, they went back to visit Carrick the monk's mentor, the Grand Monk of the monastery, named Vulcan. They used Vulcan's broship with the god of time himself, Narterius, to send them back in time by one day, so they can complete their intended mission. Now, after all this trouble and strife, including the uncomfortable news that she seems to have a little too much in common with an ancient deadly monstrosity named the Nightingale, the party at least have one bit of good news. Now that Nadar has technically left the time loop after drinking the dragon blood potion, he now gets to keep his wings forever! After clearing up a few confusing details about what they might need to expect when travelling back in time, the party set off from Lostwick, using the teleportation circle at the Lostwick Archive to return to the capital city of Labrie. There, Carrick leads them to actually meet his cousin this time, having previously just missed him as he was heading out the door. Carrick wastes no time stressing the urgency of the matter that they need to speak with him about, and encourages him to summon the Archmage to join them as well. They make their way downstairs, within the cliff separating the upper city from the rest of Labrie, to the scrying network that the Viscount uses to spy upon all of his citizens. While they are waiting for Rebecca Tuttle, the Archmage, to arrive, Carrick spots his son, Bryce, waiting near one of the exits. The party can't help but wonder why Carrick was so keen to go speak with his son, given the extremely negative reaction that Carrick seems to invoke in Bryce. The party figure they may as well eavesdrop on Carrick's private affairs with his son. It seems Carrick has left Bryce with no small amount of daddy issues, but it doesn't become clear why exactly until Carrick's ex-wife, Eva, comes in to drop off her son's lunch. And then it all suddenly makes sense, as the two basically spit acid at each other in what must have been the mother of all ugly divorces. Practically having to pry Carrick away from his now sworn enemy, they finally spot Rebecca arriving, and they quickly begin their explanation. They give Labrie's leaders the full rundown, from Doris and his Toothaker's to the impending attack on the city, and even something about the Gravelord. And when they are done, Cyrus and Rebecca take a moment to let it all sink in, and then thank them for their service. The party are somewhat confused and annoyed to be so suddenly dismissed after their efforts, but Cyrus and Rebecca both feel confident they can deal with Doris's little uprising now that they have all the party's information. Carrick especially feels rather blindsided by his own cousin, until Cyrus assures him that it's nothing personal. This is just their job to deal with, not the party's. They are already forming a plan to have Rebecca use a large stock of the Emporium's teleportation scrolls to move the bulk of Labrie's army to Dale on the day that they would attack, catching them off guard before they are ready. So alas, the poor party are metaphorically kicked to the curb, left with the next 2 days of downtime before they need to attend the showdown with Doris back at Dale. Sufficiently bitter at his cousin's attitude still, Carrick agrees with Nadar's request to visit Trussell, and leads them all through the Viscount's teleportation circle, without permission, to go visit the little garden village. Nadar is quite happy to say that after his mum first sent him away to explore an adventure, he has now officially managed to visit every location on Wollen's map, and he has thus accomplished one of his personal goals. It's just a shame how many friends he had to lose along the way. Thankfully, it seems the nearby druids that watch over the small grove of mostly halfling farmers not only heard Nadar's tinge of sadness, but also had a cure right on hand. And thus the party proceeds to kick back and relax, at least for a few hours, with all their friendly druids and their druidic remedies. Yet unfortunately, their vacation day is cut short, when poor little Squilliam gets himself into a bad trip and ends up running screaming into the forest outside the village, which in tragic irony is actually leading the kid into danger. The party shout their gratitude to the druids for their hospitality, as they all chase after Squilliam before he gets himself eaten. Yet as they follow the screaming, and finally catch the little sound box some way out of Trussell now, they suddenly hear something. The sudden sound of powerful flapping wings shake the trees around them, as what appears to be yet another adult dragon soars overhead. They all dive for the trees and shrubs to hide from the potentially terrifying creature, except for poor Nadar that trips at the worst possible time. Nadar doesn't even have time to try and recover before he finds himself face to face with a massive red dragon. But as he closes his eyes, at least taking solace in the knowledge that he got to explore the entire island before he was tragically eaten, he watches as the dragon sniffs him before its first bite, and freezes. Suddenly willing to ask questions first after all, the dragon recoils in shock at Nadar's sense, and asks if he knows Nadine. Nadar, starting to wonder if he would have preferred being eaten over learning the answer to this question, asks the adult male how he knows his mum. Sure enough, the dragon confirms he and Nadar's mother have been seeing each other these last few days since she visited him on the island. Yet any amount of discomfort that Nadar felt about this entire situation was put aside when the dragon offered Nadar and his friends the chance to fly across Wolen on his back and take them back to the Delian Woods where they could meet Nadine again. Making the most of their extra scaly magic carpet, the party taking the view of what would usually be closer to a week's journey, that with the power of dragonflight is shortened to mere hours. Soaring over the open plain and the rugged mountainscape past Greentully, they are all quite alarmed to spot a single Tarask living amongst clay golems in a small crater below. By the verge of sundown, they arrive at a cave within the Delian Woods, and ignore the smell of kobold droppings as they once again meet Nadine. Slightly embarrassed to be seeing her son again under these incriminating circumstances, she nonetheless is happy to see them all. Or she is, until she spots Tywin bringing up the rear. And then Nadar has the privilege of forgetting all about his complicated feelings towards the Red Dragon, as he proceeds to learn perhaps the worst possible information in his life. Nadine snaps at Tywin, reprimanding him for running off after all this time, when she was sure he was dead. After a meekly clarification from the bard that he had technically been dead this entire time, until mere days ago when he was brought back to life under rather unorthodox methods, Nadar decides to step in. Nadar begs his mother to assure him that the unthinkable isn't true, that Tywin isn't his father. But alas, Nadine confirms he is. Tywin is rather thrilled to officially meet his own son. Meanwhile, Nadar is having a silent internal meltdown. And it's at this moment that some of Nadar's more selective interest suddenly start to make just a little too much sense. Yet before Nadar can insist upon leaving urgently with the party to escape this unending nightmare, they notice their commotion has drawn the attention of other residents further within the cave. Yet it's not another fight the party finds themselves being drawn into, but rather the introduction to a crowd of kobolds. Firefart himself appears from the crowd, much to the delight of Nadar. Yet sadly, the Dragonborn is reminded that in this timeline now, Firefart hasn't the faintest clue who he is, but he does respect the wings. Nadar is tempted to invite the kobolds along to join them this time, until he remembers a subtlety they will likely need to get the jump onto Reese still. But suddenly having another idea, Nadar instructs Firefart to bring his followers to Dale in 2 days from now, and has to bribe him with snacks to get him to actually follow through. Assuring the rest of the party that the kobolds will be good to have along, Nadar gives his farewells to his mother and her boyfriend, and they make their way out of the cave. They decide to push a little further through the Delian woods, before finding a place to set up camp so late into the night. Yet before they can so much as get a fire going, they hear a snap of a twig nearby. The party prepare themselves for danger, and sure enough, it approaches them. Appearing from the shadows, the party spots a massive, powerful-looking bear, slowly stumping towards them. And alongside the bear, they spot an elven woman with a bow ready and trained right on them. Yet instead of taking advantage of her ambush, the elven archer stops in her tracks, with a look of surprise towards the party, as does the bear. Carrick suddenly recognizes Leah, and runs right forth to embrace her. The party, seeking clarification, learn that Leah is Carrick's daughter, and the twin of Bryce, who they met earlier. While Leah maintains a strong relationship with her brother, it's clear that Leah took Carrick's side during the ugly divorce. She explains that the two of them were actually heading north to Lostwick right now, in the hopes of finding her father there in the first place. She wanted to warn Carrick and his fellow monks that there was a bigger threat heading their way than anything else they were worried about at the moment. Carrick is thankful for her concern, but confirms he already knows the Gravelord, and they are already working on a way to deal with him. But she's welcome to help them, of course. But Leah corrects her father, as apparently the Gravelord is not the massive threat to the world that they are talking about. At this point, she can't help but ask, as a fellow animal lover himself, why Leah keeps talking as though the bear is helping her make all these decisions. The tabaxi expects her to answer for herself, but instead the bear just steps forward, looking right at she. And just when the party thinks they're about to meet a talking bear, they watch as the bear reverts to its original form, she's mentor, Mirren. And as she is recoiling in shock at the sudden appearance of the man he's been looking for all this time, Mirren gives she a grave look, and simply says, "She, we need to talk."